Hello, and I welcome you all to today's session on procurement of food grains. In this session, we will try to understand firstly what is the need for procurement of food grains, what are the modes of procurement, third is the procurement system which is existing, what is the concept of MSP, then we will also touch upon the aspects of storage of food grains, the stocking norms, the movement of food grains across the country, and also what are the recent measures which we have taken in improving this food grain management. See, objectives, let me first start with the objectives of the food grain procurement. As we all know, before we get into the real objectives of food grain, let me first give you a brief background. The procurement of food grains is essential for the food security to meet the requirements of this country, and the concept of procurement we first realized when we, after independence, we were running from hand to mouth and we had to depend on imports to meet our requirements and to create the buffer norms. Hence, the requirement for the green revolution was necessitated, and in the 60s, I should say late 60s, our productions have really started picking up. To first understand the procurement, we must understand the agriculture. Agriculture, as we all know, is the basic lifeline of it is the basic lifeline of all the rural based, and it supplies the essential food grain requirements to 1.2 billion people of this country. Though over a period of years, the role of agriculture in the gross domestic product GDP, which we call, has come down, and today it stands at 16%, yet it is most important and cannot be neglected. It is the farmer who plays a major role in this food security of this country, and hence to address his issues we should understand the procurement. The procurement is being done basically in our country through a DCP, decentralized concept, as well as the non-DCP mode. The essential objectives of procurement, let me tell you once again, is to provide the minimum support price to the farmers, to meet the requirement of food grains, and also to build the buffer stocks. Then coming back to the mode of procurement, we will first understand what is decentralized procurement. This decentralized, as the word says, it is decentralized, that is, every state government is entrusted with the responsibility of procuring their own requirements, and they are encouraged to undertake procurement and to meet their requirements through their own means. For this DCP, which is called as the DCP procurement, decentralized procurement, the Government of India supports or meets the requirement of the states through funds, and also lends them support in carrying out of the DCP mode of procurement. Today, we have around 12 states which are undertaking the DCP procurement in respect of rice, and also another 8 states which are undertaking DCP procurement in terms of wheat. So, why a DCP procurement was felt necessary for this country? Let us just understand. Firstly, that whenever a state government is entrusted with this responsibility to ensure it has a wide and a greater penetration into its areas, therefore, as a central agency may not know the problems which are geographic to a particular state. In case we have the DCP kind of procurement, we feel that the state governments will address the issues locally much more effectively and ensure that the agriculture is developed in their respective states. So, the concept of DCP procurement first started in the year 1997-98, and this is gradually the government of India has been persuading the states to adopt the DCP kind of procurement and to encourage its support. So, the DCP procurement, as I have told you, has certain advantages. First and foremost is that the requirements are being met locally by the respective state governments. Secondly is that the local varieties which are preferred can be procured by the state governments. Third, there is a tremendous saving for the central for movement of the food grains. In case the states meet the requirement locally, there will be a minimum necessity for movement of these food grains. So, you must appreciate the fact that prior to this DCP concept, the most of the stocks were moving ex-north to different parts of the country, and on an average they have been traveling around 1500 kilometers to reach their respective destinations. So, states which are now undertaking the DCP procurement may no longer have to look towards the center nor towards the ex-north receipts, and this helps greatly in reducing the transportation costs, transit losses, and also ensures the requirement to be met timely. Just in case the states fail to meet their requirements, then FCI steps in to meet the requirements by moving the stocks ex-north. So, whenever a DCP state has procurement in surplus, the Food Corporation of India steps in to take over that surplus stocks, and FCI takes over the responsibility to dispatch it to the recipient or the deficit states, and such transport, logistics, etc. are arranged by FCI. So, when it comes to the non-DCP kind of procurement, as I told you, is totally centralized, and Food Corporation of India and other agencies on behalf of the Government of India carry out this procurement, and the entire procurement rests with the FCI and its agencies. In a non-DCP kind of a procurement, you have an active role of the state and FCI sit together, and then they work out the respective mandis which are to be operated, or marketplaces, purchase centers which have to be opened. They finalize this plan much before the start of the operations. So, a DCP and a non-DCP kind of procurement, in a DCP kind of procurement, we have an active participation of the state governments. Now, let us understand how the procurement takes place. First and foremost, as you all understand, the Government of India announces the minimum support prices for various agricultural commodities before start of season. Why is this required? This is basically to encourage the farmers to go in for active cultivation, to increase the acreage. If at all a farmer finds it lucrative, then certainly he would like to grow such crop. So, the prices are announced well in advance, and these prices are determined based on the recommendations of the CACP. The prices are notified by the Ministry of Agriculture. The CACP does calculate the margins which are required for a respective crop, the input cost which go in cultivation and also production of it. Then the CACP also recommends from time to time if any changes are required in the costing. So, by and large, the role of CACP or Commission for Agriculture Cost and Prices is advisory in nature. The government formulates the policy based on its recommendations. So, as I told you that the FCI and the state government in consultation with each other open large number of purchase centers throughout the state. Then the farmers bring their produce to the respective market yards, mandis. The market yards have arrangements for cleaning, drying, weighing, etc. And this job is basically done by the APMCs, which we call as Agriculture Produce Market Committees. So, the food grains which are conforming to the prescribed specifications, the Government of India also prescribes the parameters which are to be adhered to while procuring the food grains. So, which we call it as quality specifications. So, such stocks which are conforming to the quality specifications are procured by the government agencies at the minimum support price. Minimum support price is again the price which is determined by the government on the recommendations of the CSCP. Next, the question arises if the farmer has an option to sell. Certainly, if the margin is good enough for the farmer to sell it to any other agency or a private party, he is free to sell it at open market. And in case the stocks are not fetching the required price, then the FCI or the government agencies step in to purchase it at the MSP, which is called as minimum support price. Procurement of rice used to take place through two routes. One was called as the CMR and the second was levy earlier. The CMR means that the government agencies purchase the entire paddy and they give it to the millers for milling, and the respective resultant rice is received back by the government agencies. Here the entire investment is borne by the government in purchasing paddy, shelling and then a receipt of rice. The levy system which was earlier there was also contributing for the procurement of rice. However, here the purchase of paddy, storage, movement, the responsibility was with the rice miller, and only the resultant rice, a percentage of what is milled by the respective mill, has to be delivered to the government agency, that was FCI, and which was called as the levy system of procurement. The levy system had its inherent demerits and lacunae, for which the government has abolished the levy system of rice procurement currently, and we are doing only the procurement through a CMR route, wherein the government takes the responsibility, as I have told you. Apart from this, there has also been a recent development wherein the government has framed a policy on pulses procurement through FCI and other agencies like NEFED and SFAC. The pulses procurement, as you are aware, the prices of pulses are much higher than the minimum support price. So, the government has decided to build the stocks of pulses so as to look for the market intervention, and the pulses are being procured at the market rates, which is being released to the respective state governments to stabilizing the prices. So, having dealt with this procurement, let us just understand the next slide is about the minimum support price of wheat and paddy. As you can see that there has been a gradual increase in the minimum support price for these commodities, that is wheat and paddy. And paddy, we have two grades or varieties which we call it as, one is common and the other is called as grade A variety of paddy. The difference between these two being that the common varieties are short or bold in nature, whereas the grade A varieties are long or slender in nature. So, obviously, like going by the geographic preferences of the people, these varieties have been grown and they are being procured by the respective state governments. Now, the next slide which we have is about the production and procurement of wheat. So, let me just tell you that while there has been a constant increase in the MSP of rates, however, as you can see, the production again here has been erratic in the sense that there is no constant increase, and there have been years wherein the production has been less, and likewise the procurement also. So, hence it goes to prove the fact that the agriculture still in this country, in spite of all this technological development, infrastructural development of irrigation facilities, etc., still continues to be at the mercy of the monsoons, and monsoons have a greater role to play, and that is where our agriculture is the future of our agriculture depends basing on the extent and the timing of the monsoons. The next slide which we have before us is the production and procurement of rice. The mere statistics, again the same trend is being revealed, that there have been years wherein the procurement has gone up again, and there have also been years wherein the procurement has come down. So, the interesting fact is that there is no direct correlation for the production to procurement. As you can see, at times there have been an increase in production marginally, and whereas the procurement has gone up tremendously, and vice versa. As I was talking about the pulses procurement, the government has taken the initiative of procuring these pulses under the price stabilization fund, and we have four commodities which have been procured under this price stabilization fund, which is chana, masoor, tur and urad dal. So, the government has demonstrated that the procurement of pulses is also on their agenda, and then the procurement of these pulses is to stay on for market intervention and then to control the prices basically. The pulses procurement which has started this year currently is took place in selective states of Telangana, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, Rajasthan and Bihar. This was the very first year of this procurement, so we expect that the policy is likely to continue. The next slide which we have before us is about the procurement operations. As you can see, this is one of the purchase centers. You can see that the grain is heaped up in the market yards, and also there is a cleaning going on in the background. So, these are the things which we have discussed earlier, that the cleaning, drying, etc. is the responsibility of the takes place by the APMCs, the Agriculture Produce Marketing Committees, and the commodity which is purchased is being bagged and heaped and subsequently transported. So, having procured the stock, it is at most important for its safe storage, so that this same can be used in the subsequent years where there are lean seasons. So, right now we have a storage capacity of 816.24 lakh MTs in this country, both FCI and state governments put together. We also have a concept of the cap storage, which is called as covered and plinth, which is basically used for storage of wheat and paddy. So, temporarily the stocks are stored in raised platforms covered with provided with some dunnage and then covered with tarpaulins, which are of course subsequently liquidated at the earliest. The reason why we still have to depend on the cap storage is because the bulk of the procurement takes place in a very short span of time. If you can see the wheat procurement, the entire procurement gets wound up in a matter of 2 months, and out of these 2 months, I think the bulk of the procurement takes place effectively for 20 to 25 days. So, logistics being a very big problem, we resort to the temporary cap storages, and subsequently they are liquidated through rake movements or movement by trains. So, then we have here a picture of a conventional godown, which is as you can see structures built, and these are more commonly visible, whenever you travel by the highways, etc. So, this has been our salient feature of the storage structures in this country so far. Now, the concept of silos has also been actively encouraged by the government. In fact, we have a target to build around 100 lakh MT of silos by 2020, and 13.5 lakh MT of silos has already been tendered. These are silos, let me tell you, are the vertical, as you see, vertical cylindrical structures made of steel and RCC, or steel or RCC, and they have mechanical loading unloading facilities. So, human intervention is a minimum here, and the operations take place mechanically. The advantages with these kind of structures are that the temperature, the humidity, etc. is regulated. Resultantly, the shelf life of the grain is increased, and likewise the losses are reduced. So, the silos, of course, they are currently we have around 10.5 lakh MT of silos in the country, capacity of silos in the country, and further they are going to come up by 2020 to 20 lakh MT, which is there. So, as I have told you that the advantages of silos lie in their bulk. When we say the bulk intake, we mean to say that the grains as such, without being bagged, are being handled here mechanically. They undergo through various processes of cleaning, and then finally the clean grain is stored in those bins which you see, and the transport takes place mechanically. These grains are also moved in bulk, when I say, through rakes, specially designed railway wagons. So, the advantages they lie in that there is a minimal human interference into this. The shelf life, as I have told you, the grain is stored for a longer period and with minimal losses. So, this next slide is about the storage capacities completed in the last 3 years. So, the first which we are talking about is private entrepreneurial godowns, which we have added 131.09 lakh MT during the last 3 years. We also have godown constructions taking place under the planned scheme, northeast and other apart from northeast also. There are also silos, as I told you that we are also going ahead with the construction of silos, and tenders have already been called for in these 6 locations. So, this is the plan for augmenting the storage capacities. The slide is of course self-explanatory. So, the next point which we are going to discuss is the stock positions. The stock positions and the central pool, the stocks which are being stored under the DCP as well as the non-DCP mode are termed as the central pool stocks. The central pool stocks are both a combination of the state stocks procured by the DCP and non-DCP modes. So, next slide we have the stocking norms or strategic stocking norms, the stocks which we ought to have, which are determined on quarterly basis. So, the slide is self-explanatory. Then the most important aspect in the management or the procurement of food grains lies also their transport, as we see that the bulk of the procurement takes place in the north, and then these food grains have to be moved in the shortest possible time to the deficit regions or the states. So, the transportation plays a very important role for movement of these food grains. As the slide depicts that 87% of the stock is moved by railway wagons for long distances and also by trucks through short distances. The 70% of the food grain stocks are moved from north to different destinations of the country, as I have told you that the bulk of the procurement takes place in the north. So, on an average the 25 lakh food grain bags of 50 kg packing are transported every day by FCI, and covering a distance of 1500 kilometers, of course, which approximately works out to rupees 90 per bag for such distance by rail. So, this is a slide which depicts about the movement of food grains year wise. As you can see, the movement which has been taking place ex north, that is dispatch of stocks from the north zone to other parts of the country by rail, by road, etc. The next slide again is the stocks which are moved apart from the north zone. As we have discussed, the decentralized procurement has the advantage that the stocks can be, we need be less dependent on north. So, the concept is, this slide is depicting that the states are, movement of such stocks is taking place even there as well. So, lastly we will come up to the initiatives which have been taking place in the recent years. So, in order to increase the development of agriculture in the eastern states, the government is focusing on increasing the procurement of rice in eastern parts of the country like eastern UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal and Assam. Geographically, these states are adequate with natural resources, so the concentration to increase the production over there is the focus of the government as of now. The pulses, as we have discussed during the current year, the pulses procurement is also on the rise. So, the storage capacity we have run through is that the silos which we have discussed, they are also being augmented. And the recent initiatives, one of the recent and most important initiative is that we are also going for an online procurement module, development of an online procurement model called as e-procurement for end-to-end computerization of the procurement operations. One of the important aspect of this online procurement, it creates a database of the farmers. So, this will come a long way in implementation of the minimum support price. So, the last, of course, the Food Security Act which has come up and then which is being implemented in 33 states. There is the recent concept of the direct benefit transfer which has also been launched, and then Pondicherry, Chandigarh with effect from September 15th, Dadar Nagar Haveli with effect from March 2016. So, summing up with this session we have understood what is the need for procurement of food grains, which is, as I have told you earlier, were ensuring MSP and also creation of buffer stocks to meet the PDS requirements. Second is the modes of procurement, which is decentralized and the centralized modes. The systems of procurement which is regarding the mode of procurement which takes place in the mandis, and the movement of food grains wherein the railway rakes etc. are movement by rakes and then by road, as we have discussed. And also lastly were the initiatives in the recent food grain procurement and handling scenario, which, as I have discussed, was regarding the focus which is shifting to the eastern states for increasing the procurement. Second is about the e-procurement module being developed, wherein end-to-end computerization of the procurement activities is on cards. Third is about the creation of these scientific storage structures, which is silos. And lastly is the implementation of the National Food Security Act. With this, I hope you might have got some insight into the procurement. I thank you all.